Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to yet another Tea Talk. This is my voiceover speed paint series where I talk about creative things, art things, and I give my perspective on certain topics that hopefully you guys are suggesting. I've already received a few suggestions, and to those of you who have, I really appreciate it. That's going to make it a lot easier for me to keep up with these and to keep producing new content. Yeah, so this week we will be discussing the art community and what it's really meant for me. And yeah, so comment below and tell me about what the community has meant for you, whether or not you feel kind of a part of things, you know, if you feel like you're outside of that, maybe you're having a hard time finding people you can connect with and create with and that sort of thing. So hopefully this video kind of shed the light on how I found that, mostly through social media. But anyway, so I guess I should begin by saying that I'm not the only artist in my family. In fact, it's kind of a generational thing, and this is, I don't think it's very typical. I think it's kind of a weird sort of artist backstory, but my great-grandmother was an artist, my grandfather was an artist, my grandmother was an artist, my great-aunt was an artist, my aunt was an artist, and my mom is an artist. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know, of course, a lot of a lot of the people I had mentioned. They passed before I was even alive, but I did grow up in a family, in a home, I guess you could say, that was just spattered with art on the walls, and it still is. And you know, there's art supplies I can dive into, and there's art books I can dive into, and I can come to my mom and ask her to show me this or show me that, or what do you think of this, what do you think of that. So I had a very positive upbringing in terms of that, and so that's kind of, I think, the most important thing for me, and it has been. My mom is extremely supportive of my art and the direction things are going, and she doesn't do digital art, but she thinks it's really cool. And yeah, so she does mainly oil painting these days. Growing up, she did mostly acrylic, but yeah, it's nice to be in a house where there's that kind of creativity flowing, and it definitely makes things easier. I know a lot of you listening probably don't get that kind of support from your family, but I'm really grateful that I have that. So that's kind of the biggest thing for me, and I think that's impacted me the most. But growing up, I mean, I had friends in school. Like, I just think back to like elementary school. We'd watch anime, and I had a friend who'd she would draw little comics and stuff, and we were super into it. And so we kind of had a little community going, but I wouldn't say it wasn't like a serious art community or whatever. We were very young. And simultaneously, I was also online on, I'd actually mentioned this in I think it was the comparing yourself to others video, but I would go on these image boards called okakis, and it was an in-browser client, like in-browser program called, I forget. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, you'd draw an image, like you draw something and then post it there, and you'd get other people commenting. And a lot of these ones were anime or like furries or like wolves, like basically where every digital artist starts from, one of those three. So I'd get a lot of feedback from other people there. But I wouldn't say that I was like super involved in any one community, and I was always, and I think this is just how I grew up and the kind of person I am, but I've always kind of been the person who, you know, I'll kind of dabble in communities or groups and not really feel like I'm really a part of them, and so kind of being an outsider in that way. But growing up, like aside from having one or two friends who was interested in art, for the most part, most people weren't, and they didn't really understand it. Um, and even with my, the friends that I grew up with or got to know in high school or whatever, they didn't really understand the idea that I had in my head that this is the only thing I want to do with my life. Like I can picture no other thing. Like there's no plan B for me, and I still have that mindset today. But there's nothing I can see myself doing other than creating and making art that would make me feel happy and would make me feel sad. Like I can't picture myself living a happy life, not being able to create on a regular basis. And in terms of like career aspirations, same thing. So I don't think a lot of people understood that then. And maybe I was a weird exception to where I always knew that I had to do this, and I wanted to do this at a young age. And again, maybe that goes back to being so like coming home to, you know, art and art books and constant source, of inspiration and everything like that. So yeah, now I had I was dabbling in, I was going through I had these little communities that I was sort of a part of, but not really, of like, these image boards when I was very young, and then like DeviantArt when I was older, like iScribble. I remember I got to know a couple people from iScribble, which is pretty funny. I don't talk to them anymore, but so there's kind of a little community there. But you see a lot of people online. I saw it a lot on Tumblr, starting from a few years back when I first joined that site, where they're like art friends, art buds. They don't know each other in person, but they're very close. And I was always like, yeah, I wish I had an art friend. Like, where are these art friends at? How do I make one? And I never found with Tumblr that it was easy for me to go and reach out to people. And I think part of that is just maybe my own insecurity. I wouldn't even say that. I would say I have social anxiety. Like, I do. That's not debatable. And so it's kind of hard for me to go out on a limb and reach out to people. And I felt like Tumblr made that a little hard for me, because you'd have to go in and like private message them, which was like, an ask, or send fan mail or whatever it's called. And it was just, it was intimidating, and it goes back to also comparing yourself to other artists, thinking like, there's no way that this artist would want to talk to me because my art sucks, and those kind of thoughts. By the way, I do have a video for this, comparing yourself to other artists, so if you're having any similar things, that might help. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So it was just hard for me to reach out to people. I had also joined Instagram. I don't know, I didn't really see it as anything but like you post photos and, you comment like nice on other people's photos. And again, I never really felt inclined to go and message people on there. And maybe it's part of feeling that kind of intimidation and that anxiety with approaching people. Having social anxiety, I don't know, like if you're at a bar or something and you see a large group of people, I'm not the kind of person that feels comfortable jumping into their conversation or like walking up to them. It's hard for me to approach people. And so the same is true online, and it sounds a little strange, and I guess if you don't experience that, maybe you don't relate. It sounds a little bit stupid from the outside, but it's because it's online. Like, who cares what people think of you? But these thoughts still go through your head, especially when they're artists that you admire so much. And I don't know, you see people online sometimes and it's like, man, I really want to be that person's best friend. Like, they seem so cool. Like some YouTubers or like other artists who like post about their life and stuff, and you're like, man, I wish they were here and we would be like best friends because they seem so cool. Not to sound creepy or weird or anything, but some people you just think like, hey, I'd mesh well with that person. I wish I could get to know them somehow. So last year I had revisited Twitter after, I created an account. I think it said in 2012. just out of morbid curiosity. I thought Twitter was like the worst thing in the world. I'm like, again, I mentioned this before, but someone described it to me as like, yeah, you can like follow celebrities and stuff, like Johnny Depp's on there. I remember them specifically saying Johnny Depp's on there. I'm like, oh, I like Johnny Depp, but do I like him enough to follow him on there? No. Do I like any celebrity enough to follow them on there? No. But anyway, so I went to this convention, Con Bravo in Hamilton. I'm hopefully going this year. I'm set on going this year. So if you're going, let me know. Maybe I'll see you there. But anyway, and all these people were like, everyone's tweeting about like where they're at and the events they're going to, and so I'm like, oh, this is cool. So maybe I'll follow along and rejoin. So I did that weekend, and I was, following along and everything like that. And I kind of kept up with it, and I wanted to know what like the people who were at that convention were up to and what they were working on, because some of them mentioned they were working on this project or that project. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, that's really cool. And then eventually I realized, wow, there's like other artists on here. There's an actual community of artists on here. Some of them very famous artists, some of them artists who, I don't know if they're necessarily famous, but their work has meant a lot to me. I've admired their work for a long time. I've I've like cried over their work. No, not actually, but I really admire them. So you don't feel weird on Twitter about like following people, because it's what you do. People want follows. It's not creepy if you follow someone. So I'd follow someone and I'd like their stuff, and I'm like, this, I don't feel too weird about this. Like, that whole, like, social anxiety, like, I hope they don't think I'm weird thing isn't really as much of a problem. And then you see random strangers who they don't know, who only have, like, 2 followers or whatever, replying to their stuff and interacting with them, and they're interacting back. And so there's not this, like, weird wall between people. And maybe there is, and I just don't notice it, but it seems less so, and it seemed less so when I was kind of getting into it. And so then I started posting my own work, and when I started Twitter, it was kind of selfish posting. I like to say, where it's just like, this is what I'm doing, and I post a new thing, and why isn't anyone liking this, and meh. And then after a while, I kind of realized, like, hey, oh, this person's posting that. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to comment on their thing and let them know how I like it. And then they comment back, and people started doing the same thing for me. And so I followed, like, a whole bunch of people and did that and had fun. And I think, was I working? Like, did I start? Anyway, I ended up going on my break and, like, going on Twitter and trying to post something every day, and I don't know. And one day I had someone approach me and it's like, hey, I was thinking of doing like weekly Google Hangouts things. What would you think of that? And I'm like, hey, whoa, that's awesome. That's cool. Like, why don't we do that then? And so now we're doing like weekly Hangouts, and we have a group of artists every week. Some who come every week, some who are like new, and it's just kind of like drop in, casual, whatever. But yeah, so it's been good. And I don't know, I've grown a lot in this past year, and I kind of feel like I owe a lot of that to the community. And before the Twitter thing, I was for years I'd been like involved in this role-playing game. It's text-based role-playing. People draw their characters. There's still is a huge community of artists, and it was very like good for I don't know, everyone would commission each other, and everyone would give feedback on each other's art and their characters and stuff like that, and it was really cool. And I remember there were times where like I had posted something on DeviantArt when I was using it more, and just kind of saying, hey, I'm gonna have to take a hiatus because my life is kind of a mess, and I'm kind of a mess, and I'm really not doing so well right now. This is this past year, I guess 2015, and I was saying everything is kind of the worst, so if you don't hear from me, like, don't worry, but I just kind of need a break from all things. And I had an artist on there who actually like drew me something, and it made me cry because it meant so much to me. It was just a little doodle of my character, and I don't know, it's just little things that people do for each other online that I guess if you're not too... See, I'm even getting it in my voice. I'm feeling it. It really meant a lot. That person probably has no idea how much that meant to me. But, you know, when someone's like, hey, you know, I'm not doing so well right now, and having a community that's supportive and, you know, has been through that, or even if they haven't, they're just there for you, and it's, you know, meant a lot. So, you know, I try not to talk about my personal stuff on Twitter, because I do, you know, I go through a lot of emotional ups and downs. I'm still dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression and panic attacks and whatever, and I don't post about it, but honestly, like, it's still there, and because I don't want to keep a messy profile, and I don't want to let everyone, you know, force that on anyone, but it's like, it's, you know, we go through it all, and sometimes I'll have a really, really, really bad day, and I don't know, seeing someone say something, you know, like comment something on a picture I've done or whatever, it makes me a little bit happier, or just seeing that people are interested in or care and are invested in your growth as an artist and you as a person. It's nice. And you don't have to have like thousands of followers to have that. Just reach out, like, even if, like, I started out with like 30 followers, I don't know. I remember sitting at 30 followers for a while. Obviously, you don't start at 30. You don't get, like, they don't give you a complimentary 30. But, you know, like, reach out to other artists. Once, you know, it's hard to expect, you can't really expect someone who has like 30,000 followers to like follow you back, because they actually see your profile. Like, they don't always look at your profile. They have a lot of notifications, you know. It's not like any snubbing thing. It's just like, it's honestly, it's hard to filter through the notifications and everything. So, I don't know, there's, how many artists are there who have like under 300 followers that I can think of, who are so incredible, like, they're just such amazing people, first of all, with amazing art, very kind. So don't just, you know, go for the big shots and expect that you're gonna find your community there, because I think it starts with people who are interested in engaging with you and who are able to do so because they're not being flooded with notifications. And I think that's kind of where you find those meaningful connections. I don't know. I think of my mutual, you know, my mutuals on Twitter and stuff as my friends, and it's just kind of nice, like, to see like, little glimpses into people's lives, like, and I don't know. I mean, you can't get like, obviously how people are online, it isn't entirely accurate to how they are in person. I don't really know where that begins or ends with me, like my online persona or whatever, and how I am in real life, but yeah, you don't know, but still, it's nice to have. And I don't know, people, like, just friends online, even past the whole art community thing, just friends have helped me through a lot of really dark times, when I didn't really have anyone else at all, like, in real life, in person. So yeah, and you know, when I like say, like, every now and then I'll be like, you guys are just like the best. I'm so thankful. Like, you have no idea how much your support means to me and stuff. It's not me just saying that. It's like, honestly, when I'm up at, you know, 3 in the morning, I'm having a panic attack. I don't really know what to do with myself, and I feel bad reaching out to people my in my life. And I look online and, like, I see positivity from people, and, you know, I see like so much support, and, like, I don't mean people kissing your ass and being like, oh man, you're the greatest artist alive, or like whatever, but I mean people who are just like, I don't know, it just means a lot to know that people are there, and I think that's important, especially someone like who does have social anxiety and who does like have a hard time connecting with people sometimes, or like approaching people. And you know, when you're like extremely depressed and you don't want to leave the house, or you're so anxious that you don't want to leave the house, and like being able to still have those types of interactions and make those connections without doing that, I think is very underrated. And I think people who don't experience what it's like to live that way, might not see it, and might, I've had like people, like family, be like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna off to talk to your like internet friends, right?" Had that all my life pretty much, because I've always had, internet friends. But I'm like, yeah, because I don't have any friends, and like say in high school toward the end of it, I was like, yeah, I don't have anyone to talk to, and I'm going through some shit. Like, I kind of need to have something. So that's what it's meant to me. And I've gone on this long tangent, but it's very obvious that like you get critiques from people, and you get, what do you think about this color of on this piece, or on this whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm all like, I get really emotional when people like link you something, and they'll be like, oh, I just like this reminded me of you. I'm like, oh my god, you guys are the best. I don't know. But yeah, that's what it's meant to me. And it's honestly changed my life, and impacted me so positively that I don't know. But another thing was, before I end this, I actually deactivated my Facebook. I was seeing a lot of ugly things from people I grew up with, that would upset me on a regular basis, like very upsetting opinions on the world, and following certain people, maybe on Tumblr or whatever. I had to take a step back from Tumblr, because for me, a lot of people were kind of posting stuff that really like got me down and wore me down emotionally. And you just, I don't know, like you have to be careful of who you surround yourself with, and even online, like there are a lot of really ugly sides to the internet. I'm not trying to sugarcoat things here by saying like, hey, people are so amazing. I've like lucked out, and I feel like our community is full of so many really, really cool people who understand. I think artists have a unique perspective like creators in general. They know how important it is to support each other, because what we do is difficult. All the demons we battle, and all of the hardships we face with the rest of society, who doesn't necessarily understand what we do or why we do it. We have to be there for each other. We have to have each other's back, and we need to lift each other up. Obviously, not every artist has this mindset. It's clear when they don't. But I think a lot of us do. And finding other people who understand that, have that understanding, can be really helpful. And yeah, it can be good. Yeah, so I don't know. This video's, again, it's too long. I'm sorry. And I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent. Some of you guys said that's a good thing. I don't know. I try not to make these like depressing, but in all honesty, like I feel like I've kind of gotten over a lot of stuff over the past year. And you know what? Maybe one of you or a couple of you listening is going through the same thing. So I'm actually not going to apologize for the tone of these. But yeah. Anyway, as always, I will leave you with this, which is be kind to yourself and never stop creating.